So what are we talking about this week?
A lot of things. One thing I want to say is, I call you Yaakov.
Yeah,
Do you mind?
not terribly.
Okay. And Yaakov is Hebrew for what?
Jacob.
Okay. And that's your name, right?
Yeah, well, my name's Jacob, so yeah.
Okay. Well, one overview question. How long would you say you've been in therapy? With me and or others included?
Well, do you want to count my childhood psychologist?
No, just adult
Okay, that's
stuff.
more like, I want to say about 6 years then.
Okay. Including me and...
Yeah, and the guy
okay.
up in Salem.
Okay. Anything about meds? I know it's taking meds.
Well,
medication.
yeah, I'm taking meds.
Yeah,
But,
which ones again? I forgot.
I'm taking it's a generic brand Prozac, generic brand Wellbutrin, and I think it's Concerta.
Okay.
Yeah, they changed it recently. So
Okay. Are you concerned? Well, not concerned, but do diagnoses mean something to you? And if so, which ones?
Well, the more I think about it, the more I find that just either my ADHD is an excuse I can use, or it's actually a hindrance.
In what way?
Well, just that yesterday I was at work and actually no, the day before I was at work, and I kept going to do something, forgetting what it was, going back to my station at the cash register, and then remembering what it was and going back to do it again.
Did anybody notice?
I don't think so. If they did, nobody said anything about it.
Can
Honestly,
you say,
it's kind of the norm for me and at least one of the other people there.
oh, really?
Yeah, there's the waitress there, one of the waitresses there, I'm pretty sure she's on the spectrum and ADHD as well.
Yeah, say something about being on the spectrum.
It's weird, my place on the spectrum. Like, I feel like I'm not quite autistic enough to be just like obviously autistic at a first glance, but the more you get to know me, the more you realize, oh wait, this guy's a shut-in, he doesn't keep in contact with people all that well, and he tends to ramble a lot.
Well, the rambling could be the ADHD part, right?
They're usually mixed, right? Like, it's one and the other, not either or.
Well, what about, I mean, this is a sensitive issue, but this, okay, about not moving out of your parents' house.
That's
what does that reflect?
That reflects just general disorganization, executive dysfunction, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Like, if I can't remember where I'm going just to like get the, just to get a few glasses for something, for an order I'm preparing, then I'm not confident that would do well in an environment where I have to pay bills in a timely manner.
Yeah, you've talked a lot about paying bills and
Yeah.
taxes and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Does that weigh on you?
It does, yeah, because I know I don't look it, but I am 33 years old, and that's not young. My back hurts.
Right now?
A little bit.
Okay.
I need a new mattress.
All right. In what way? So how old do you think you look?
People keep saying, oh, you look like you're 25, you're mid-20s, somewhere around there.
How do you feel about that?
I feel like, again, just I am not what I seem to be. Like, people get this impression of me, and that's what they think of me, and not really who I am.
Well, what are some other examples
Of
people not seeing who you really are? Getting first impressions and not really seeing who you are.
Just me tinkering with things. Like, I don't really know what I'm doing. Like, yeah, I know how to turn a screw. I don't know what I'm doing once I get the cover off. I can look at something and say, okay, yeah, that's complicated. Maybe this would fix it. And if it breaks in the process of me trying to fix it, I'm never going to try to fix it again.
All right, but who's the most important? Who's the most likely person to look at that and to maybe misinterpret that?
Just anyone who sees me, like, looking over my shoulder, hey, you look like you could fix this. I don't know. The chairs at work, some of them wobble, and I'm like, okay, that just needs a new screw.
Yeah.
I put in a new screw, and it's like, wow, this guy's a handyman.
Yeah, but what's
I rotated something. That's it. You could do that.
But what's the word I use? That we talk about all that, the code word.
Yeah, Autism.
Yeah, say something about that.
I'm not really sure I'm for it anymore. Just like, I mean, I get it. Yeah, I do have some natural skill in this, but
Right.
people seem to keep projecting like, I'm good at something.
Yeah.
That means I must be very good at something. Or I have basic skills in something or basic knowledge of something. Somehow I'm an expert because I know more than they do.
Right, at the restaurant, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah. But tell us about your family background. That might explain a little bit of the artisan, right?
Might be. I mean, my dad is, he does bicycle repair in his spare time. So he's mechanically inclined. My mom, less so, but she used to teach math.
Okay.
I think mostly it's on my father's side. He did get an engineering degree, I believe.
Right, right. And he wants you, what's the story on you working with him?
We haven't really done anything recently.
Really? Yeah. Well, you know, you say that the home is very chaotic or very disorganized.
Very, yeah, it's, we don't really communicate with each other as well as we should.
Okay.
There's just clutter in the halls. We haven't done a spring cleaning in maybe 15 years. Like an honest, like month-long spring cleaning is what it would take at this point.
And your room?
My room, I probably haven't cleaned in 5 years, but it's all just like paper clutter, like nothing biohazardous or anything.
Okay. But you can get through, you can navigate around the room?
Yeah, it's a tight space, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, well, what's a typical day for you? And does that have anything to do with the clutter and the chaos and so forth?
Probably. I mean, I don't really keep a schedule for myself.
Right. So what's a typical day?
Typical day, well, now that classes are over, it's most days I wake up when I wake up. I get on my computer. I surf the web for a little bit just to get myself, awake a little bit. Then I go have breakfast, and then I do whatever for the rest of the day, which is usually I just go back to the computer.
And then spend how much time?
I don't know, just until my eyes hurt. If the weather's good, maybe I'll walk outside for a moment just to say I did.
Yeah, what is your relationship to the outside world? How would you describe that?
Every now and then my friends text me and say, hey, do you want to get together? And I'm like, sure, because it would be rude to say no, and sometimes I do have a good time with them.
The posse?
Yeah, the posse.
Okay. Do you like that code word?
I'm not objecting to it.
Okay. So who do we refer to as the posse? Who are they?
There's Ethan, there's Dan, sometimes there's...
Jesse? Not Jesse.
No, not Jesse. Bricky.
Yeah. And what do you guys usually do?
Usually it's just like, oh, Dan's got his home theater set up and he got something new on Blu-ray, let's watch a classic movie.
And you know a lot about movies.
Not really.
Well, yeah. I mean, you have a lot of knowledge. I mean, not knowledge in making them, but knowledge of, right?
Not even that. Like, there's a lot of things on my to-watch list that they've been there for at least a decade now. I still have not seen Princess Bride. And people call that inconceivable, I know.
Okay, all right. But what are some things you have seen that you try to turn me on to, for example?
Well, I was mentioning Helldivers, the video game recently, and I compared it to Starship Troopers, another movie I haven't seen but I've heard of.
Yeah.
And, well, I mentioned that to you.
Yeah.
I forget what the other one was.
Well, there was a whole range of films that I haven't seen, right?
Probably.
All the superhero stuff.
I haven't been keeping up with the Marvel Cinematic Universe pretty much since the first Avengers. I need to catch up on that.
Well, what are some other strengths that you have? You've mentioned a little bit, well, sort of. But what are your key strengths? Because let me ask you this. One of the ones we've talked about, and people have told you, is communication. Why have they said that? What is it about your ability in that? Communication, in a broad sense.
Well, they've said that I compose words pretty well on paper, or on the computer, rather. I don't write all that well.
Yeah.
They say I'm well-spoken sometimes. I find that's usually in regards to explaining why Like, I'm not the person they seem to have the impression I am.
Well.
Well, that's because I have to do it so often.
Yeah, but I mean, what if we talked about that you were very fluent in? In fact, the last session we had.
That was last week. My brain is just
Well, it was
rotting,
usually about
flowing out my ears.
Well,
I
it was
don't
things.
remember.
Yeah, it was things outside yourself, like film, video games.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like, just you wanted to. I think the week before that, if I'm remembering now, just like I was talking about my own interests,
Yeah.
and you decided to keep going on that because it seemed to get me in a good mood.
That's right. That's right. And what were the interests we focused on?
Mostly video games.
Okay. I think films too, or not?
A little bit. I don't remember.
Okay.
I mean, it's much more video games than it is films for me.
But I think you had a sophisticated approach to video games. I mean, that you could describe them in a way that might interest somebody like me.
Yeah, who doesn't play them at all.
Right. So, what would you say about that capacity?
I'm decent at explaining things to people.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay. And what about your voice?
I have been told I have an FM radio voice.
And what's right? Is that good?
It is, but I tried getting into voice acting, and it's a lot more editing than it is actually speaking, so that turned me off.
Okay. Why?
Well, it's like, okay, you do the thing you're good at. Now you have to sit down for like half an hour,
Yeah.
just making sure that everything else around it is good. And I don't know why I thought that would be something that someone else would do.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I'm just the talent. There's
Yeah.
someone else who makes sure it's actually good.
Yeah, like a producer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back in the day. Right?
Perhaps.
Yeah. What are some other code words? We got the posse, we've got artisan. Well, I think generic is something we talk about.
Is it?
I think.
I don't remember that one.
Okay. Well, we'll make that up. But I mean, so we got about typical day, communication. What are you what part of your life, I know you've said this before, but it's okay. What period in your life are you most proud of, and you feel you're at your top level of self-confidence, self-esteem?
Right before the fall. Like, just before I went to college.
And the fall, you mean
The fall being the first semester where I took
yeah.
on too many courses. I willingly misread and then ignored one of the syllabuses,
Yeah.
syllabi,
Yeah.
and I got in over my head. I thought I was good. I was not.
Well, how quickly did you feel that?
It took about half a semester, like maybe less than that, a third of a semester.
What about levels of developing in a career? We're going to call it a career.
Yeah.
It might be a job, might be a career, right? You know, they're two different ideas.
Yeah.
But let's say, moving up the ladder in some way. You're not trying to become the CEO, but you're moving up the ladder.
Well,
Is there a way to do that? For
possibly, but usually that ends up being management, and again, I don't even really manage myself, so why should I be trusted managing other people?
No, I mean, that's going all the way up. I just mean getting to, a modicum of a full-time job, right?
Yeah.
That might pay benefits, that might allow you to feel confident enough to move out of your house. What would be good about that? The whole 9 yards.
Well, it'd be something I could stake my pride on, I guess.
Yeah.
And I'm hesitant to do that with anything because I've done that before, and here I am now.
What's so bad about being here?
Well, I'm here because I stake my pride on things, and that didn't turn out well. That's what I'm
Okay.
saying.
What would you mean by stake? What do you mean by stake my pride?
Like some people, well, a lot of people, the first question a lot of people ask at a cocktail party or whatever is, so what do you do for a living?
I know. What do we? Oh, that's another code word.
Yeah.
What do we call that?
I don't think.
It's 2 words.
Remind me, please.
Resume questions.
Oh, resume questions.
Yeah.
That one hasn't come up recently.
Okay.
But yeah. So, like, what do you do? What do you do for a living?
Yeah.
Like, that's just what is most of your time occupied with? Like,
Oh yeah.
for some people, their work is their identity. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying everyone's a company man or whatever, but
Yeah.
like just what they do for a living is most of their time. It's
Yeah.
what they're good at. It's what they can say, this is how I contribute to the world. I don't have that, and sometimes I'm wondering if I ever will.
Before you do that, about wondering if you ever will, what would be an interim thing? What could you say at the cocktail party? Although you don't get invited to cocktail parties.
Yeah, no, and if I am, usually I decline anyway.
Okay. Well, how can you do it in a suave way? Not just then, but in other situations.
Well, I haven't really been doing it in a suave way. I just tell the truth. I'm tired of just making things up.
Okay.
Like saying, yeah, sure, I'm going back to college again.
Yeah.
Even that, like, if someone's known me for a long enough time, they'll be like, didn't you go to college 10 years ago?
Yeah, right. Well, I called it self-loathing right in the beginning.
Yeah.
Early on. Do you think is it the only way you could go? I mean, is there some other way that you could explain these issues?
I'm not really sure there is. Just like, I don't know if it's self-loathing, but I feel like it's rationalized as the problem. Like I can point to points in my past and say, like, see, this is why I'm like this.
Okay.
This is why I don't trust myself. This is why I don't want to bother anymore. This is why I feel like I should have done something with myself and I haven't. This is why I feel like people got the wrong impression about me from the beginning, and I'm not actually like that talented kid that they remember.
And when you say from the beginning, when is that?
Like 6 years old, getting taken to the Museum of Science and looking at all the bright lights and shiny posters and going to the lightning show and being like, wow, this is all very exciting and stimulating.
Yeah.
I didn't read a damn thing. Even like going there at 15, I still didn't read any of it. Like I was just there for like, I don't know, it was all distractions. It was no substance. But people seem to take that as, oh, he's reading those visual dictionary books.
But you weren't.
Yeah, like I was getting basic trivia out of them at best, but most of the time I was just looking at the pictures.
Well, the people would be your parents, right? At
Yeah,
that
my
age.
parents, my teachers who told my parents.
Okay.
I feel like I gave people the wrong impression for most of my life.
And so when you look back on that now, do you feel it was a sham? Do you feel like, imposter syndrome?
Oh, absolutely.
Describe imposter syndrome for you.
Imposter syndrome for me is just trying to reconcile who I thought I was with who I'm realizing I very well might be.
Okay.
Like, I used to think, okay, if I set my mind to anything, I have the potential for it. And then I realized, actually, my mind isn't really up to the task for a lot of the things I thought I would be doing.
And because the things are more complex than you thought.
Yeah, like, I can watch documentaries about stuff and get basic knowledge about things, but if you want me to actually dive into a textbook and learn, like, how chemistry a couple of years ago, that was a very tough course.
Really?
Yeah. Biochemistry in particular.
Yeah.
Like it is more math than I ever anticipated it would be, which makes sense because like it's just molecular scale engineering, really. Like it's figuring out, okay, this atom has this number of stuff, this other type of atom has this number of stuff.
Right.
They have to add up to this number to be this specific thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they'll just bounce off.
Yeah. But you're paying attention to that stuff in general. I mean, you do pay attention to science and technology when you come in here. You mentioned
Sort of.
stuff. Yeah.
I mean, it's a passing interest at this point. I'm kind of discouraged from it because I know I'm never going to understand it at the level I thought I might. I know what an apogee and a perigee is. That doesn't mean I'm going to be
Astronomer?
an astronomer, orbital physicist,
Okay.
an astronaut, anything like that.
Which one of those would you like to be?
The more I know about astronaut, the less I understand why kids would want to do it, because like that is a hard job. That is 18-hour days
Yeah.
in a
Capsule.
Yeah, in a capsule or in an uncomfortable, bulky suit, with your fingers cold, tightening nuts, taking notes, just listening to someone on the ground tell you how to assemble something.
Yeah.
It is very much the sort of thing that I can understand why we have robots doing a lot of it.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's an artisan job.
It is, yeah.
Well, look, what you just said, the string of sentences you just
Yeah,
said.
it's an analysis.
Yeah. Well, how many people have that? I mean, a lot of people can't even do that.
Well, I pity them because this isn't me trying. This is not even a talent. This is just my string of consciousness, ADHD brain, connecting things that aren't necessarily connected.
No, they are connected.
Well, I'm connecting them. I'm not saying they're actually there, but I'm saying, okay, this person did this thing back then, so maybe he's up for the guy who's more like this now.
Well, I mean, that's cause and effect reasoning.
Yeah.
Well, you're pretty good at that.
I can be, yeah, but there's not too much of a job for that. Not that I'm aware of.
How would we combine cause and effect reasoning with, what do you think I'm going to say?
Artisan.
Yeah.
You always say artisan.
Yeah, right. The artisan and the cause and effect reasoning. Well, yeah, I mean, the thing with the screw, was it a screw or not?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It was a thing with threads that you turn with a tool.
Okay. So the cause and effect would be, it was on too tight or too loose? What was
Too loose.
Too loose, yeah. All right, so that's analysis of
Yeah.
the problem. And then the artisan thing is doing it.
Yeah.
Okay. And knowing which tool to use.
That's pretty simple. Like,
I
does it
know.
fit?
Right. No, but
That's really all it is to tools. Like,
Yeah.
if you can, I keep saying, like, a lot of this stuff that people make out to be hard,
Yeah.
I'm wondering if they did like that thing with the like the different shaped blocks and the bucket with a lid on it that has the cutouts in specific shapes. Like, can you put the star-shaped thing through the star-shaped hole, or do you put it through the square hole?
Oh, that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
Well,
Like,
what's the name of that? I forget.
I don't think there's a specific name for it.
Yeah.
I just know it most recently I just know it from this one video of a lady reacting to someone intentionally doing it all wrong.
Intentionally.
Yeah, intentionally, because everything, if you turn it sideways, it fits through the same hole.
Well, what was it? Do you remember what the first thing you talked about on a videotape thing that you were watching pretty consistently? And I said, that's a real artisan focus.
Please remember.
The
Please remind me.
Power washing.
Oh, power washing, yeah.
Yeah.
That
I
was,
said, yeah, go ahead.
like power washing, lawn mowing,
Yeah.
like those 40-minute, 1-hour videos or something. Honestly, I just put those on in the background so I'd have something going.
Oh, okay.
Like, just so there'd be some stimulus instead of me just sitting in a chair.
And if you sit in the chair, you wouldn't be doing something else at the same time?
Probably.
You would or you wouldn't?
I probably would not. I mean,
Okay.
I don't really have anything that I'm planning to do.
Well, on your cell phone.
Well, if I was on my cell phone, I'd just find something else to doom scroll through.
Okay. You're
Like
not
this-
doing two videos at the same time.
No. I do not have the attention span for that. Definitely not.
Some of the bad habits you have. Let's
Yeah.
admit, we can admit there's
Absolutely.
some bad habits, right? How many of them relate to the video world? You know, the IT world, the internet insanity world.
Quite a bunch, probably. I mean, I remember there was a power outage, I think last fall. I sat around a lot. Like,
Okay.
I thought to myself, okay, there's daylight. I could clean my room, but I don't feel up for it. There's daylight out. I could, I don't know, I could, like, do something in the garden, maybe. I don't know.
That's right. We're going to get to that in a second. Garden.
Yeah.
You just, you hooked me into something. We're going to get to that in a minute. All right.
Okay.
We're going to circle around, as they say, right? Well, so the reason you weren't sure what to do was the power was off for a couple of days?
Yeah, it was like, I forget what it was. I think it was a tropical storm came through or something.
Okay.
There were outages all over Massachusetts.
Including at your house?
Yeah, including at my house.
For several days?
Yeah, for at least a day or two.
Okay. And when something like happens, do you do the ADHD thing about having to fill every moment of time, or you get bored right away?
Well, napping fills time, so
Okay.
I don't know.
No, but if you can't fall asleep, and you're awake, and you're thinking, what would you normally think, and how often would anxiety come up?
And it depends on my mood. Sometimes not so much, sometimes more.
Can you describe your moods?
Not very well, actually.
What's the cause and effect on the moods?
I think it's just swinging between manic and depressive sometimes. Like,
Okay.
okay, I'm having a good time, then I realize, oh wait, I could be doing something more productive with my time. And then there's just me trying to do something productive with my time, and it's like, man, I don't want to do this either. So I end up just sitting there or doing something less productive or taking a nap, or eventually it might boil over into just like half a day of me actually doing stuff.
Such as what?
Such as, well, last time I did, I cleaned up part of my room.
Oh, okay.
But
You haven't told me that.
yeah, this was like a year ago, I think.
Okay.
Maybe I did, I don't know.
Okay.
But just like every now and then I get a burst of energy and I have no control over when it is, and I do stuff and then I get tired and then I don't do it for a while.
Yeah, but isn't that a partial accomplishment?
Sort of, but I need to do that more regularly is the problem. And regularly is not a word that's in my vocabulary, even though I just said it twice.
So, in getting back to this, it sounds like a no-win situation.
It feels like one.
Okay.
And I'm kind of making it one, so.
Well, describe it again to remind me of the no-win part.
Well, the no-win part is I want to do something, then I do something. Well, I don't have control over when I want to do things.
Right.
And then when I do things, I get tired afterwards and I don't do them again for a while.
And then you feel what at that point?
And then I feel like I'm useless, like I'm not accomplishing things. But I want to accomplish things, but I don't have the energy to do it. So I just sit there and I do unproductive things.
But let's say you take a nap.
Yeah?
Let's say in the middle of the day, maybe.
Yeah, not out of the question.
And you wake up, and let's say it's sunny outside. It's not raining. It's not a hurricane.
I'd maybe go out into the yard or something. I don't know if I'd actually take a walk. That would require me to actually have the energy to go do that.
Yeah, but do you feel worse after the nap? You know, you wake up from a nap and it's still light out, and it's a nice day. What do you feel like?
I don't want to say numb, but I do feel like I've spent time that I could have spent otherwise.
So do you realize that in our conversation, I'm
Yeah.
sure you do, I don't know, what percentage of your responses are laced with guilt and self-criticism?
A lot.
What percentage?
I don't know, I want to say at least 90.
So you're not proud of that?
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not proud of it, but I'm just sort of like accepting, like, okay, this shows not too much sign of changing, and I'm the one who has to really make a change. So
Yeah, so I was going to ask this. What's your vision? How do you like that word?
go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it.
Of the blank. What's the next word?
Future.
Hey, you got it. What's the vision of the future?
I don't have one.
Well, if you make one up on the spot, you can take your time. You don't have to do it.
I would need
instant.
a lot of time, because this is something I'd have to build from the ground up. I don't even really have a direction right now. I mean,
No, I
I
don't mean
guess
time
getting
to
into
do
the
it.
communication field in some way.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, maybe I'd be writing for someone, maybe I'd be producing videos. I don't know.
Well, I didn't mean the time it would take to do it. I meant the time it would take to say something about it, to think about it. And
Yeah,
to
that's what I'm
explain.
saying. Like
Oh.
the time to actually think something up, like a full. Well, one of the first sessions I had with you, you said you're too focused on like having a plan. You need to actually go out and do things, and
Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah.
But like this would be making a plan. So I would need to. Like I can't think in broad strokes about something like this, especially not when it's like something I've already got a block about.
Well, what did we say? Well, two questions. It doesn't have, I mean, what was that? What did I mean? Now that you know me really well, what do you think I meant about not focusing on the plan, but doing it? What's the point of
Not
that?
being paralyzed by like just saying, okay, I need to know what I'm doing before I go into something.
Yeah. And what's the alternative to that?
The alternative is, I think the old phrase for it is YOLO. Just you only live once, go and do it.
Wait, what's the phrase?
YOLO. It's an acronym.
Yeah, no, I like acronyms. You only live once. Okay.
It kind of got hijacked by people who just wanted to do stupid things. Like,
You mean on the internet or something?
yeah. It used, like, I remember it started off as just like, I am having a blessed day. I went on the vacation I wanted.
Yeah.
You only live once. And then that moved on to, I'm running through traffic. YOLO. It was stupid.
Well, you've got good analysis of the absurdity
Yeah.
of popular culture.
Honestly, I wonder how many of these, like, stupid internet challenges are psyops. That sort
What's
of
a
thing.
psyop again?
What is a psyop?
Yeah.
Well, a psyop would be something that
Is
keeps
that
you
an
from
acronym
finding
too?
out about a psyop. It's a psychological operation. It is a
Okay.
behavior
yeah.
modification.
Yeah.
It is getting people to do things without really realizing they're doing things.
That's what counterintelligence people do.
Exactly. They did
Yeah.
it to Martin Luther King.
All right, but if we did this, Yaakov, if we invited into this room, I don't know how many people. It's not a lot of space, but how many we can invite? in?
Standing room, I'd say like 20 people.
Okay. What percentage of them would think that you've got skills that are useful?
Actually useful, or just I've convinced them they're useful?
Well, you're not going to convince them. You're having a conversation with me like we've been doing,
Yeah.
and they're standing here listening to it, right?
Yeah.
What percentage of them would say, man, that guy's got some chops. He's got some chops.
Possibly, I don't know, like at least half of them.
So that's
I'd say like 15 out of 20, but like,
well, that's more than half. Yeah.
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 But again, like, this is the sort of thing I'd have to train for. And every time I've trained for something in the past, like
Yeah.
even something that, like, oh, he's good with his hands, maybe he should go do that for a job or
Yeah.
be an engineer or something.
Yeah.
Like, that hasn't turned out so good. So, like, training to be an analyst or something, I don't know.
No, but it comes natural. I mean, the thing about.
Well, I said that about the other things too, so I'm not sure who to trust anymore.
But is it possible to have a natural talent in something?
Yes.
Of course. And we've
And I've
done.
been told I have several, and none of them have actually been there.
Well, here's the Myers-Briggs chart.
Yep.
We've talked about it a lot with that. Right.
Yep.
And
What am I again? INTP?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's right. INTP. Yeah. Yeah. And what does that say? Troubleshooting?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. We discarded you. Well, yeah. So you troubleshot the chairs at Berlundi, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're loose. Something is not secure. It.
No, I
remember,
know that's not a big one, obviously.
like I was studying biotech last year,
Yeah.
and again, that's another thing that never went anywhere because
Did you want? Oh, you wanted it to. That's right.
I wanted it to because, like, that I figured that would be a pretty direct way to help advance science, or at least
yeah.
participate in it. But yeah, STEM. You can't really escape the M in that. Just the math's everywhere.
Oh yeah.
So, as I was saying, I digress. The quality assurance class, like, that was an online class. Didn't really, wasn't really that well organized.
Was that
but
the name of the class?
yeah, it was
Quality
like,
assurance.
yeah, it was how to. That was all about troubleshooting. They like, how do you figure out? Okay, through this documentation, here's how we tell this is what went wrong.
Yeah.
Like, if you get audited by the FDA,
Yeah.
you have to say, okay, we figured it out. This is probably the problem.
And what went hard for you in that? What was difficult for you in that? In assignments like that?
It wasn't the assignments were like that. It was mostly just like the class itself wasn't too well run. But I digress again.
Yeah.
Like, the troubleshooting is at the heart of that.
Yeah.
Like, they have this principle called the 5 why solution.
All right. Let me hear it.
And you ask the question why 5 times.
Well, for different things.
Well, for the same thing. Like, it starts with one thing, you get an answer to why for that, and then
Yeah.
you ask why about that answer. Like, why is this office painted white? Because whoever designed it wanted that color. Why did they want that color? Because it's their favorite. Why is it their favorite? Because they saw a flower of it when they were a kid or something. I don't know. Like
All right,
that.
I get that.
Just a chain of cause and effect.
Do you know what my attitude to the question why is in therapy?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't ask why questions.
No.
Yeah. because I've said it's a rabbit hole.
Well, yeah.
I mean, not in something like that.
Yeah,
But
when you're actually trying to figure out, like, okay, here's how something happened. Did we want it to happen, and can we either prevent or continue to have it happening?
No, that's doable.
Yeah.
Okay, but the why about, well, why do you feel that da-da-da? That's just going down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Okay. But,
I think that's kind of the rabbit hole I'm in. Like, I point to events in my past that, like, just mostly my career
yeah.
as reasons I am not satisfied with myself right now.
Would you say that you're somewhat of an idealistic person?
I'd like things to be better. I don't see a way to do it.
Right, but you want things to be better.
Yeah.
Okay. And you would be able to describe some things that would be better, that would make things better.
I can kvetch with the best of them.
Okay.
I can offer complaints with no semblance of a solution for
Okay.
days.
Okay. Really? For days?
Or at least no practical solution.
Okay. Would you do that at Berlandi?
Usually no, because that's just like, okay, we need more of the takeout containers. Go get them next time you're at the restaurant depot, please.
Yeah, so Berlandi is a cohort.
Yeah, kinda.
And it's pretty much a lot of it in your cohort. Like
Some
age.
of them.
Yeah. I don't think any of them would be able to do what you did.
Well,
Yeah.
the ones that are actually in my cohort, like my age group, most of them are parents, so they have other things on their
There we
mind.
go. There we go. Do you think about that? About being a parent?
Yes, and like I said, I barely manage my own life. I don't want to have to be responsible for another person's.
In your generation, or with this generation, people say they don't grow up until they have kids. Why would that make sense to you? How would that make sense?
Because it changes how their life is run. It changes how they emotionally relate to the world. It gives them something to ground them.
Yeah.
It's like it's a new era of someone's life.
Yeah, people rise to the occasion. You've heard that expression.
Yeah, I've heard that. Of course I have.
Do you think you do?
Not usually. I mean, I'm not sure I rise to the occasion so much as just sort of like I scramble to the surface and I keep my head above water.
Okay. Well, that's something.
Yeah, I guess. And sometimes I don't even do that.
Well, you've just seen an edited session with Yaakov or Jacob. And he's been a client of mine for a long time. I think it's 5 or 6 years. He comes weekly. He's very reliable in terms of that. His timing is a little off in terms of coming late, but he's committed to doing this, even though being able to assess or measure progress is difficult. However, the rapport most of the time is good, so at least the relationship, I hope, is benefiting him. He has a hard time having relationships, so I think it's good that he can have one with me. The main type of therapy I'm doing with him would be called cognitive behavioral therapy and psychoeducational and, let's say, coaching. And we're looking at, the way he thinks, which, as you could see, is really, really negative and self-defeating. And it's understandable, but it is self-defeating. And if he could think differently about himself, it would raise his self-confidence and raise his ability to do things, to actually get out there and do things that he is capable of doing, but the anxiety gets in the way and the bad habits get in the way. The bad habits are really profound. They get in the way of his schoolwork, they get in the way of being productive, they get in the way of following up with more friends. The group that I call the posse is really just 2 other friends, sometimes 3. They're a little more functioning than Yaakov is. They did meet each other in a special school, which I think was from middle school through high school. And actually it was during that time, Yaakov didn't come up with it, but he's talked about it before. It was during that period in his life that he felt most competent and most sure of himself. But unfortunately, it might have been an overestimation. He's had the idea at times of not only having a job and moving through a career and being able to live independently, but he's had these ideas, which he did not express today, which is good. He's had these ideas that he had to be really at the top of the world, that he thought that he was going to invent some new physics principle, some new principle in science. He's talked about that in the past. I think he may have come down to earth a little bit, but he has held himself up to way too high a standard. And the reason I've suggested a lot the artisan thing, and let me just say what the artisan issue is. Artisan is not the same as artist, not at all. It's somebody who's doing things, a profession or whatever, using their body more than their mind. Doesn't mean they don't have a mind, but the body and use of tools and being spontaneous in a lot of ways are artisans. And they're not just like blue-collar professions, although those are artisans as well. It can be a race car driver, it can be an athlete, it can be a dancer. Those are people whose greatest strengths are in their body, more than in their mind with abstractions. And the reason I thought about Yaakov as an artisan was when he first mentioned stuff like watching on the internet somebody power washing. Who looks at something like that? I mean, you have to have a certain kind of affinity to that kind of information. The other thing is his father, who's also on the spectrum, his father is a bicycle mechanic, as he talked. And his father also is very intellectual, but is very much in the artisan world. The thing that I also noticed early on was that the expectations of his mother in particular, who I've gotten to know a little bit, and his mother really emphasized for Jacob the intellectual side, the idealistic side. So, for example, a number of years ago, he read, I think, a statement. I think it was on Martin Luther King Day at a Unitarian church. And he was brilliant, apparently. And his mother was excited, and people in the congregation were excited. But this did not mean that he should be pursuing that as a main source, as a main focus. It's really good that he cares about that, but it doesn't mean that his focus should be that. And of course, he has to decide what his focus would be. The only reason I remind him of his artisan skills is because they're the most possibly adaptive and compatible, and not out of the question that he could start working in that way. And I believe in Yaakov, and I really believe that, for example, us walking right down the street to the Toyota dealership was a damn good idea. Because whenever I've suggested for him to go do something that on his own, he always finds an excuse not to. And it turns out it's the anxiety. Anxiety gets in his way of doing what we would probably consider normal basic things. The anxiety prevents him from doing it. So doing a field trip, as I was calling it, and the person that I knew, the manager, was totally able, willing, and open to probably hiring. Did not rule him out at all. And when I went back a few times after, he asked about Jacob. So Jacob has a lot of talents, and some of them he could put to use. And a lot of them get in the way because he's convinced from the past that it won't work, that he can't make it, that he can't perform up to a level of the required level. And yet he stayed at Berlundi. And yeah, he can downgrade it and say that's a restaurant in Waltham. He can downgrade it and say that he's not doing very much, that it's really a nothing job. But the fact is he's gotten along. He's been able to survive there quite some time. And that proves something. And I hope he really internalizes that at some point. And I do talk with him about that a lot. So I do try to focus on his strengths. That's the idea of strength-based therapy. And trying to maneuver him out of the obsession with his deficits. And when he's in a good mood, a reasonably good mood, we can have a lot more fun, a lot more lightness, a lot more joking, a lot more rapport. And that seems to bring out his best talents. I want to keep helping him bring out his best talents. That's my goal. And that's what makes this worthwhile, I hope, for him as well.